So I think a scenario lots of viewers can relate to is sitting on the couch on a Friday night, going through the streaming services, cycling through the movies and thinking to themselves, they're not making movies for me anymore.
When you take these concepts from animation, 2D animation, and put them into live action, there's something about it that is, at the very least, unsettling. But the live action Disney films are just a travesty and sort of represent everything wrong with modern movies today.
And for a few years, they kind of let us do our job. The producers made the produced the movies and did the budgets and did the things, and we did it. But then the studios went back to saying, well, we don't trust you people, and we think we know how to make movies. The studios change everything all the time, and unfortunately, they don't have any imagination, and they don't have any talent. So what are you selling?
If there's one thing Hollywood's good at, it's getting us to feel powerful emotions like love, envy, lust, anger, and happiness. Whether we want to admit it or not, we're all drawn to the familiar comfort of the movies we loved decades ago. It's like a warm blanket of nostalgia that wraps us up and takes us back to simpler times. We get excited, hyped, and willingly part with our hard-earned money, only to be left with a bitter taste of disappointment. There are so many movies that we see being advertised to milk our feeling of nostalgia for everything that it's worth. Thinking to ourselves, will it recapture the magic of the original, or will it just be another soulless repeat produced by the greed of Hollywood? Even with these hesitations, we'll probably be there in the front row, ticket in hand. But why? In the last decade or so, there's been an obvious trend. Hollywood is relying heavily on remakes and sequels, often at the expense of originality and creativity. First, it's important to distinguish between a remake and an adaptation. A remake is when a film is made again, usually with the same story, minimal change to characters, and usually just updated visuals or the occasional modern twist. While an adaptation is when the story is created from another existing medium, such as films, books, plays, and most recently, video games and toys, as you'll see in the Barbie and Super Mario movies. Although there are a good set of movies following the set rules of remakes and adaptations, there are just so many bad ones, and it shows in the ratings from all angles, not just Disney. So why the f does Hollywood keep doing it anyway? Well, I can think of a few main reasons. Obvious reason number one, money talks. Remakes and adaptations of popular stories already have built-in audiences. People are familiar with the characters and the plot, making it easier to market the film and attract viewers. And studios typically see this as a safer investment compared to taking a risk on an original story that won't have the same level of recognition. The Lion King from 1994 brought in a domestic box office of over $422 million, nearly $1 billion worldwide. And just 25 years later, its live-action remake would gross over $543 million and $1.6 billion worldwide box office. There's also the lower risk of failure, hence Hollywood's risk aversion. Reboots and sequels of popular franchises are safe because, again, the fan base is already built in and people know what to expect. Original and experimental films require a leap of faith, which Hollywood is hesitant to take due to potential financial losses, which sucks because a lot of the films we love today were created with some level of riskiness involved. To Hollywood, it's always safer to take that 50-50 chance of the movie flopping while making millions off of existing fans either way, rather than walking away with barely anything. And this is one of, if not the main reason, the nostalgia factor.
Let's go home.
All was so long, partner. Oh, hey, Buzz, you haven't been Bonnie's toys yet.
We as moviegoers often have a strong emotional connection to the stories we grew up with or have fond memories of. And by remaking or adapting these original stories that brought us such joy, Hollywood taps into that and capitalizes on our desire to relive those experiences. And this can be seen in the recent surge of the live-action remakes of animated classics such as Beauty and the Beast, Lion King, and now, most recently, the Barbie movie. You can't help but think back to your childhood of when those dolls were everywhere, whether you played with them or not. And even because of the success of Barbie, there are now plans for more movies to be based around toys from the 90s, and even before then, which is absolutely insane. So why do we keep flocking to these films even when we've been disappointed before? We say we'll stop, but then we keep running back anyways like a toxic relationship. Well, there's a simple reason. We often find ourselves drawn to familiarity when it comes to entertainment. Whether it's the early seasons of SpongeBob, shows like The Office or Breaking Bad, we find comfort in the repetition. These shows have become a part of our culture, with memes and references popping up because people have watched them so much. On days that are really challenging, stressful, or when we're feeling unwell, revisiting our favorite films from the past can transport us back to simpler times, even making us feel like kids again. Adding on to that, watching the same things repeatedly might seem counterintuitive, but it actually requires less mental energy to process. When something's easy to think about, we're more likely to perceive it as being good. You might think that watching something over and over again will lead to boredom, but psychologists have found that repetition actually breeds affection. Thus, a film we've seen multiple times becomes blissfully easy to process, enhancing our enjoyment. Whether we admit it or not, there's a certain charm in reminiscing about the past. According to psychologist Clay Riddledge, we often sometimes watch old movies to recapture a sense of how things used to be. And this process, referred to by researchers, is known as regressive reconsumption. Allows us to use entertainment as a time machine to revisit old lost memories. One of the comforting aspects of old movies is their predictability. We know how they end, we know how we'll feel when they end, and this makes rewatching old movies a form of emotional regulation. While new books, movies, and TV shows can offer thrilling surprises, they can also really disappoint us. Old movies, on the other hand, never disappoint us. As we age, they remain the same. Returning to familiar entertainment is, in a sense, emotionally efficient. We're guaranteed the emotional payoff we're looking for with no surprises. It's like a comforting, predictable journey back in time. However, this comfort is slowly being ripped away from us with each new remake and adaptation being released. So what can be done about it? Well, we can't stop Hollywood from pumping out these films, but what we can do is understand the value of backing new original content while also admitting that the pull of nostalgia is hard to resist. In the end, even if Hollywood continues to remake our favorite classics, remember that the original films and the emotions they evoke inside of us are irreplaceable, and they can't take that away from us. Let's continue to cherish these films and the memories they've given us, because that's something that no remake or adaptation can ever take away.